The racist slurs made by Frank Hester, who's the biggest donor to the Conservative Party, he's made the most extraordinary comments. I shouldn't be using the word extraordinary, should I? Because I use it all the time. He's made the most pernicious comments about Diane Abbott. Now, Diane Abbott may not be everybody's political cup of tea, but all you have to do is look back at the wonderful political programs that she made with Portillo, where they're both sitting on a sofa and giggling together. And politicians have two lives, don't they? They have the life where they're putting forward their views and their political ethos, and then they have their personal life, where they are exposed as clubby, entertaining, rather cheeky individuals. For the most part, the downside of recognizing that they actually share so much in common. One of the wonderful stories that I heard a while ago that I deeply treasure is the fact that Tony Benn kept up a regular correspondence with Mrs. Thatcher long after she had left office, and until she died. And you just think, what a wonderful man he was, what an extraordinary inspiration he was, and that little anecdote tells you how that personal warmth went across the political divide, as it should. You can't think of any two people who were more politically opposed to one another, and yet they kept up a very warm correspondence. And similarly with Diane Abbott. Diane Abbott may be gaffe prone. She may be in love with some very odd ideas, but she's also a professional politician and a person of great warmth, and that is clear, and that was very much clear from the television program she made with Portillo. And Frank Hester's comments are simply abhorrent. I don't even intend to quote them, but he draws a conclusion that when you look at Diane Abbott, you then want to dislike other people simply because of the colour of their skin. And that is, I can't think of anything that is more clearly a demonstration of racism. So Frank Hester is a healthcare technology entrepreneur. Why are we not surprised? The spectre of PPE seems to envelop the Conservative Party. And these remarks are apparently made during a 2019 meeting at the Leeds headquarters of his company, the Phoenix Partnership. Well, that's a phoenix which isn't going to rise again, isn't it? And it's been reported by The Guardian. I mean, it's taken some years. It's taken 5 years to get out. But he's also then tried to hide behind the fact that he's got foreign workers and he treats them very well. That's rather like saying, I'm married to a black man or something. I've got black friends. It's so tokenist. It's so patronizing. And then when you look at the stories, he talks about people being eating their dinner in the Asian quarter of the dining room. It's patronizing. It's contemptuous. It's abhorrent. And the more he seems to speak, the greater hole he seems to dig for himself. I don't think there's any choice but for the Conservative Party to give back. What is it? The 5 million donation that he made last May, and since then I think he's made 4 separate donations to the party for another 5 million. So I think that's 10 million that he's made in 2023. it makes him the largest ever donor to the Conservative Party, and I think that makes him a bigger donor even than Lord John Sainsbury, who left about £10 million in his will. But Annalise Dodds, the Labour Party chair, said that his reported comments were reprehensible and that it was vital that the Prime Minister and the Conservative Party return his donations in full without delay. She said, Rishi Sunak has claimed that words matter, and he must know that holding on to that money would suggest the Conservative Party condone these disturbing comments. Sunak must return every penny. And the Liberal Democrat Chief Whip, Wendy Chamberlain, has said that the remarks are inexcusable and disgusting. Ultimately, the buck stops with Rishi Sunak. He must reassure the public that the Conservative Party do not tolerate these remarks. That means confirming that the party will return every penny of these donations and won't take any more money from that donor in the future. And Sir Bob Neill, who's a senior Conservative, has said that the language was stupid and offensive. He said it may have been hyperbolic, but it was divisive. I'm not sure where politics goes after this sort of stuff. Apparently, Frank Hester tried to ring Diane Abbott twice today to try to apologise directly for the hurt. Well, why didn't he apologise in 2019? Is he incapable of knowing what he says? Can he not control his mouth? And once he hears the words which come out of his mouth, does he not recognise that they're wrong? Surely the time for apology was 5 years ago. Not now, when it's reported on the pages of the newspaper. This is a bit late, isn't it? People do things, and they say things, and you think, well, okay, that's wrong. But it divides into two categories. There's the wrong which forms a criminal issue, and there's the wrong which simply means you don't want that person anywhere near you. You don't want that person on the television. You don't want to switch on your TV and find that person gazing at you. You don't want to invite them into your house for a cup of tea. These are people who have made themselves unwanted. And we have to call it out. Now, if their offence strays into, or if their alleged offence, because we don't actually know that Frank Hester actually said these things. I mean, he may have been misreported. This may not be actually his the ipsissima verbum of Hester, but this is what is reported in the newspapers. I'm simply repeating what I see, and what I see is disturbing. If what he said is anything close to what is reported, it's worrying. But even if he did not say this, let's throw the word allegedly all over the place, and let's assume he didn't say this stuff, that he was misreported. The fact that people believe it of him is surely bad enough. The fact that he is heading a business which can tolerate the sort of racist abuse that he describes in the workplace and doesn't see anything wrong in it. This is where the sea change needs to take place. I don't see this as an issue for firm castigation. I see this as an issue for education. And in so many cases where something has been done which is allegedly wrong, or which seems to be wrong, 9 times out of 10, it's something that can be sorted out. We can make sure that we are better in the future, because what this person says or what this person does that's shocking us today is what we could have done yesterday. And it's only by the grace of God and luck that we don't. And and because we've had the benefit of a better education and better friends to guide us. I like to think that racism is something that is not natural. I like to think of the song in South Pacific, which forms the centerpiece of that musical. You have to be carefully taught to hate, because children don't hate one another because of their race. They accept each other. And it's only as we grow up that we learn to reject what is different. I think we should be embracing what is different. I think we should be learning from what is different. I think we should be nurturing what is different in the hope that maybe people who have a different culture, a different background, a different tradition can teach us to see ourselves differently. As Robbie Burns said, to see ourselves as others see us. And we can't see ourselves just by looking in a mirror. We can only see ourselves through the eyes of other people. And I don't think at the moment we look very impressive. And we might wag the finger and say Frank Hester seems to have crossed the line. But Frank Hester is one of us, isn't he? And and his donations were given in good faith that he was doing the right thing. Nobody questioned him. We need to call this out. And the Conservative Party needs to pay back the money. I think it's only by that demonstration in practice of goodwill and of a rejection of this sort of appalling behaviour. And then I think we need to reach out and reassure Diane Abbott that for all the extraordinary things she says, we love her. She's one of the great characters of the House of Commons. We may not share her views, but the House of Commons would be a poorer place, frankly, without characters like Diane Abbott. And as I say, if you have any doubts about Diane Abbott, go and look at those old programs of Michael Portillo, and I think you'll come to my point of view that she's well worth everything.